Hello, everybody. Welcome to Michelle's Inspiration Hour. I'm your host, Michelle, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have you with me today. In each episode of the podcast, I am here to provide you with daily dose of inspiration that will lift your spirits, nourish your soul, and leave you feeling motivated to conquer whatever challenges life throws your way. Today, we have a very special guest who's been had an extraordinary journey of self-discovery and transformation. His name is Amrit Singh, and he's dedicated over 3 decades of his life to study the Kundalini yoga, if I pronounced that correctly. A practice that has not only enriched his own life, but also allowed him to deeply connect with others. Throughout his remarkable journey, his true passion has been to guide and uplift individuals through personalized coaching. His specialty lies in helping people unlock the freedom they need to pursue their passions while living in a life they love. So, whether you're seeking to discover your own path to inner peace, pursuing a lifelong dream, or simply looking for that spark of motivation to brighten your day, you're in the right place. Amrit's wisdom and experiences are here to inspire you. Let's bring him on to hear all about this wonderful, inspirational, spiritual journey that he has been on. Thank you so much for joining us
Well,
today.
thanks for having me, Michelle. That was such an amazing introduction. I loved it. And I really loved the video. I was sitting here bobbing my head back and forth. And I loved this. I was like, oh, wow, it's such a cool journey and the cool pictures. Can't wait. If you share it to me, I put it all over my social media. I think it's going to be awesome.
Uh, oh, well, good. Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And believe it or not, I can actually watch you. But, when you're off the screen, could watch you. And I love it whenever, the guests kind of dance to the music because that means that you're enjoying it. That's a good thing. So, okay. So we're going to start. And I have actually done this type of yoga. So hopefully I'll pronounce it right. I'm going to try it again. Kundalini. Oh, wait. Kundalini
It's
yoga.
pretty close. Yeah. I mean, Kundalini, you know, yeah, like
Okay.
that.
With the Texas draw, of course.
With the Texas draw, of course. And then people in Texas even understand you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So tell us, because I have actually done this type of yoga, and it is very, you're working with a lot of energy whenever you're doing this type of yoga. So what did it do for you? What results did you see in your life after practicing yoga?
For me, I started early. I was 19 when I had my first class. And at that time, I was, on my spiritual search, and there was pre the internet. So my spiritual search kind of consisted of smoking a ton of marijuana and being stoned all day long, because that was the closest thing I could find in my normal German life to spirituality. And I was like, I kind of feel something when I smoke. And so I have the magic solution. I just need to smoke all the time. And then that was kind of backfiring because I was just stoned the entire time. Nothing changed in my life. And I was just sitting there without anything happening. So I was like, okay, I need a better approach. So when I started practicing Kundalini yoga, and the first time when I really applied myself and I went deep and I did the exercises the proper way and the breathing, and suddenly I had this high experience, which I only knew from the drugs without the drugs. And I was like, oh my God. And this is just the beginning. And so from there, I've been building up this stamina and the strength to recognize that I can feel high and expanded without putting substances in my body. And I mean, it's just been blowing my mind. And that was the beginning of an amazing 30-year journey now.
Well, and you're seeking inside instead of trying to find something to make you, feel connected with the God and divine and everything. You found something, because a lot of people go, I can't do yoga. I can't, I can't concentrate on those poses or whatever. But you're right. It's all in the breathing and the energy just kind of moves around, and you can raise your vibration that way as well.
Yeah.
So good for you for seeking something different, saying, you know what, there's something else that I need to do to change that. So I hope everybody's listening to that. So, and then you moved to India. So, I mean, I'm going, good for him. You know, you are definitely that spiritual seeker. What did you learn in India that you did not know before?
Oh my God. I learned so much. I learned that I can be very, very physically uncomfortable, but very comfortable inside of me, in my emotions, in my mind, in my spirit, and very connected, even though it's 120 degrees out and the power went off and there's no fan and no AC. And you can only eat spicy Indian food, and there's no shops to go to. And I mean, the list was so long. India in
Oh, yeah.
early, early 2000 was just like, was really third world living. And I realized so much that I'm so much more than all these outside comforts and influences, and a clean bed sheet and a toilet where you can actually sit on instead of having to squat. And like, I mean, the list is just so long,
Oh, right.
light at night when you're going to the bathroom rather than just tapping around in the dark. Like, I'm crazy, crazy, crazy stories of all that, what happened in India. But I ultimately really realized that it's it allowed me to recognize that we are so much more than just this physical body, right? This physical body,
Mhm.
like we might be a man, we might be a woman, we might be white, we might be black, we might be Asian, we might be German, we might, whatever, like, but the
Yeah.
essence is the same for all of us. And it's so beautiful that we all got different accents. It's so beautiful that we all got different eye colors and different hair colors, and it's just so much fun. It's like it's like playing a multi-role video game, and everybody would look the
Right.
same in it. How boring would that be? You'd be like, I don't know who I met. They all look the same, right? But because we all look different and we all are different, I think it just makes it so much fun to recognize that we get to express ourselves. So for me, for example, when I started
Absolutely.
growing my beard and putting my turban on, I was like, oh my God, I look so different now. And everybody looks at me different. And then
Right.
I went into this narrow path of the Sikh religion, and I learned a lot from it. But just 5 years ago, I kind of broke out from it. And I'm like, I don't want to be labeled as religious. I don't want to be labeled fanatic. I don't want to even be labeled to be in one religion. So when people now ask me, are you a
Right.
Sikh? I'm kind of like, yeah, kind of, but I'm so much more than that. I'm a spiritual being, I like, and I love talking to spiritual seekers from the Christian religion and from the Islam and from Buddhism and to Jews. And I'm like, oh my God, we're all the same. And it really doesn't matter what you have on your head or how long your facial hair is or if you have any, it's all the same in the end.
Now, when you were younger, did you ever think that you would find who you are today?
I think differently, because when I was really young, I could really connect with this magic in myself, and I knew, oh my God, there's so much more, and there's all these different realms and these different levels. And then by the time I turned like 9, 10, 11, I kind of shut down to that. And I just started being the cool guy and being like, oh, nothing phases me. I never feel any pain. I don't have any emotions kind of person. Because I was super emotional when I was a little kid. And so I kind of turned into this asshole bully version of myself and had to go through that for a couple of years. And
Right.
yeah, that's kind of what the weed helped me to recognize that that wasn't me. But then I was just stoned for years. And then finally, when I stopped and I got out of it, I was able to reconnect where I left off when I was 7 or 8 to now when I was 25. And I put these two pieces back together, and I was like, oh my God, I can express
Oh,
that level of my child being again.
right. So, do you think you were fighting for some reason, trying to be who you are, so that you could be accepted in society, or what made you fight it? Because it's almost sounding like, like when you cut that connection with your spirit. journey and you went a different way and then you came back to it. But what do you think stopped you from continuing it?
Well, my connection was so strong in my childhood. It was just part of my identity. I thought everybody would feel like that.
Right.
But I realized a little later it was not like that. And I just wanted to fit in. I didn't want to be the weird kid. I wanted to be like all the other kids. And I was also really smart and really good at playing the game of social interaction. And so I'm like, I can just play the game. I can just be the one on top. I can just be
Right.
the leader of the group, no problem. I can play that whole game. But I was always wearing this mask. I was never truly myself. I was always going through my all my emotions, keeping everything in check. And I was, like was almost like a superior thing compared to the other teenagers who were going through their emotional dramas and their ups and downs, and they were kind of ruled by their authentic self. And I was up here wearing that fake mask, being like,
Right.
almost like a sociopath, who's like, oh, you're crying, I'm not crying, I'm going to get what I need to get. And it took me a couple of years to get out of that.
Right. Oh, it absolutely sounds like, and it also sounds like you kind of learned a lesson along the way.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You're actually a whole different person than you were back
Yeah.
then. And you were able to find yourself and your unique self and your authentic self. So can you, I know it's very difficult because it's so, abstract and it's really hard to describe. What does spirituality mean to you? Just like you said, you're not religious, it's separate from that. But what do you feel is spirituality?
Oh, I almost think, and this happens to me every time I use the word spiritual, because I recognize how I'm defining it myself differently than how the norm defines it, because spirituality very quickly gets clumped together with religion. For me, it's kind of the
Yeah.
opposite of religion. It's
Mhm.
that connection with spirit. And spirit is the spirit connection is something we all, every single one of us, has inside of us. It's a little bit like we got hands, we got a head, we got eyes, and we got spirit. Yeah, so da. But we can call it something else because the word spirituality is so overused already. So, we could come up with some other word for it. And then it might be easier for people to really recognize, okay, I got a mind, I can relate to that. I got a body because I can touch it. And then I got that spirit aspect, that spark, that connection to infinite. This, like when I close my eyes and I really truly go inwards, and there is something. And so the reason why religions had such a monopoly on that for thousands of years was because they just came up with some good rules to make sense of that and say, like, here, read this 5 times a day and you'll be okay. No, follow these 10 rules and you'll be okay. Religion was just a way to kind of make sense of spirituality and set a little bit of a standard which was easy enough to follow for people who were busy working, having a family, making sure people are surviving, and it helped them to stay connected. So for me, long answer to the simple question, spirituality is really our essence. And it's a little bit like, for me, like gravity. You can say you don't believe in gravity, but then please don't jump out of the
Right. Agreed.
window.
I absolutely love that. I love it. I love it. So, if somebody is going through a spiritual awakening, what would you tell them?
I love that question because we, in my opinion, come here already spiritually awakened, right? Every single one of us is spiritually awakened. Just by the definition of being human, you come spiritually awakened. And if you doubt that for a second, look at a baby's eyes the moment they're born. You can see that depth and that spirituality so much deeper than, you can see it in some monk who's living in the Himalaya and has been meditating for 60 years. So we all come with this spiritual awakening. And then we kind of condition and train, and society gets us to believe we are separate from that. So when people come into this process where they are thinking they're going through a spiritual awakening, It's really a spiritual remembrance. And I would tell them, don't think you're going out there to find something which you don't have. Just allow these layers to naturally drip away, because all the answers, all the knowledge, everything is inside of you. And if you have a Christian practice, practice that, because that will help you. If you're a Muslim, practice your Muslim practice. If you're an atheist, perfect. Practice your breath work and your body work and do whatever you want to do. But do something which use some tools to remove these layers. Don't use the tools to think you need to find something in the outside world.
And I love that. Remembering your soul,
Mhm.
who your essence and who you truly are. So that let's think about, if you could go back to that childhood, what would you tell yourself as a child now, since you know a lot of, that you've been on your journey? What would you say to yourself?
I mean, it would be nice to say, trust yourself, do what you do, but I don't know how my childhood would have been if I would have not turned into that asshole version of myself, you know? I might have
Yes.
experienced things very differently. I might have gotten my
Right.
ass kicked much more often than it, because I was the tough guy. I didn't get my ass kicked.
Right.
Well, it was very convenient, you know? So I almost think like, trust the journey. It's all going to be okay. Don't worry about it. There is no mistakes. We make our choices, then we live with the consequences, and beautiful things come out in the end, as long as you
Right.
show up from your heart and you follow the path. And so it took me many years to get back to that point, but I think I wouldn't want to change any of them.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. And I think you're so right. We do have to go through certain lessons and through different stages in our life so we can be who we are. Now, you said something interesting. Okay. And I've got to come back to it. So, whenever you said about when people are going through spiritual awakening, that if you're, like if you're Christian or whatever religion that you are, you need to hang on to that while renew yourself and remember who you
Yeah.
are. So, kind of to explain a little bit, dive deeper into
Yeah.
that. So why should we? Because I've heard a lot of the opposite. Oh, you need to get rid of that
Yeah.
religion so that you can carry on. So tell us about why you said that.
Oh, for me, I see religion in different ways, right? There is every religion has a tool set, and that tool set is either prayer, it's it's going to church, it's community, it's like all these different levels of tools. And the reason they've been using those tools is because those tools work. And so my recommendation is use those tools. At the same time, I agree with you. Limit yourself from being boxed in. Limit yourself from people who tell you, oh, we are the right religions because we got turbans and beards. We're so much better than anyone else who doesn't. And so these people are on the wrong path. We're on the right path. Though there, I would say, like, hey, red flags, right? Like every time when your religious limitations disconnect you from others, who look differently and who speak differently and you act differently than you, I would say a big red flag. And that is much
Okay.
broader than religion. It's the same issue we have in racism and in so many other areas of our lives. But the tools from the religions work. And if you don't have a religion, you can go find some Tibetan mantras or some Hindu hand mudras or some beautiful Christian gospel songs or read some parts from the Bible, because all the stuff is based on the same thing. It's based on allowing you to travel back to source energy. And I loved what the Dalai Lama said about it. He said, hey, all you guys coming to my classes, now you all want to convert to Buddhism. It's like a man who's been digging a well for 10 years and now he sees someone else over there finding water and he abandons his well 1 or 2 meters from water and goes starts digging next to the other person just because they found water there. Like stick with your well, stick with your digging process and use these beautiful techniques from other religions and these amazing tools to go deeper in your process. And in the end, when you find source energy, it honestly doesn't matter if you call it Christ consciousness, or you
Right.
call it Allah, or you call it Vishnu, or it's all the same in the end. But it's nice that it all has different
Right.
names.
I totally agree. And the reason why I was bringing it up is because whenever I started getting into, spirituality and really diving into different areas, people are saying, again, give up your religion. I'm going, that is a part of me still.
Oh,
That's a puzzle piece of
yeah,
me. That's what I grew up with. I had a great experience in my
yeah,
religion. I know a lot of people haven't. And so I understand they probably need to go out and seek where they
hmm,
really feel, authentic for themselves. And so like you said, I think it's going to be different for
yeah,
everybody else, but we all end up in the same place.
yeah. Yeah.
Seeking what we need to in the very end. Okay, so what I always ask my guests, if you had an inspirational statement, whatever it is, because this is an inspirational podcast, what would you say to somebody that really needs to hear some type of inspiration?
Okay, the one which comes to my mind goes right hand in hand with our conversation about religion is, if you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all.
I love it. Short and sweet. Oh my gosh. And you're right, and we're all God,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. A bit of. Is there anything else that we did not talk about that you want to make sure that we get in?
I would love to talk a little bit about my new program I'm doing, because I'm just so
Oh,
excited about it. And
absolutely.
so I don't know when your podcast airs, so I won't say the dates, but I've
Okay.
been focusing my coaching, which I've been doing with a lot of
Yes.
different people, on a more niche group, and I realized what's really needed, and what a lot of my clients were struggling with were men in relationships, around between 30 and 60, who have been married for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And they come to this point where they're realizing, oh my God, the gap is widening. I talk less with my wife, I connect less with her, I have less intimacy, I have less passion, I feel less trust. And she feels the same way. And this is this person who 20 years ago was the love of my life, and we were so close and we were so
Mhm.
connected and everything was so beautiful. What happened? And then they think, huh, if she could just change, my life would be so much better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
she's thinking the same thing. Give me that magic staff so I can point
Right.
it at this idiot so he finally changes, so I could have a
Yeah.
better life. And so after like 10, 15, 20 years of marriage, we both realized the other person's not going to change. I can put the
Oh, right.
pressure on as much as possible. They're not going to change. Like that's the one thing we're sure about, right? And so this workshop I put together is really designed for men in that situation, who are just saying like, "Hey, I see this. I see, the gap widening in my relationship. All I do is get passive. I just wait it out and then kind of gets a little better, but we're never really coming back together. It just doesn't get as worse as quickly when I stay passive." Right. And the women are kind of in this point where they're like, okay, I give this guy 2 more years. If nothing happens, I'm out. Right. And then they pull the plug.
Right.
And
Right.
so I want to invite those men who are in this situation to reach out to me and say like, I'm happy to spend an hour with you and guide you and help you and allow you to see what you need to do in order to start closing this gap. Because I'm under the belief that 100% of every relationship is our responsibility. The moment we start giving some of that away and we say, oh, it's 50-50. I was nice yesterday and then she wasn't nice, so I'm going to be an ass today, right? That just doesn't work.
Right.
You need to show up.
Right.
You need to show up for your relationship. You need to show up for your wife. You need to show up for your kids. You need to show up for your extended family. And you need to work on being the best version of yourself. And if you do that in working with me for 3 months, your wife will notice and be like, what's going on? Why is that? Why is he, why is he transforming? Why is he so nice? And guess what happens? She'll be like, I need to keep up with this guy. This is awesome. Yeah, I want to do something too. And guess what happens? You start
Right.
closing the gap. It's a process. It doesn't just happen overnight. But you're changing direction and you notice how you keep getting closer and closer. And the communication improves. The trusts improve. The emotional connection improves. You can suddenly share from your heart and you're coming back to that love which you thought was lost 15 years ago. So that's my big
Oh
passion
my
right
gosh.
now.
Oh my gosh.
So
That is awesome. Oh my gosh, I just love it because my husband and I have been married 35 years.
send them to me. Send them to me.
Well, no, but it's so interesting because we have gone through the different
Mhm.
stages and we're aware of it. And we're empty nesters right now. And so our relationship changed. But I think because of our history of for our love, and we're kind of, and I always tell him we're changing. He's going, I'm not changing. Yeah, we're changing together,
Yeah,
so we're actually in a really good
yeah, that's
place.
awesome.
But I can see, where after 35, if you don't change with it or you don't move with the different changes, and fear kind of comes in, and like you said, you try to change that other person,
Yeah.
there's some problems that can happen. So that is so needed. So I love to hear that you are
Oh, thank
actually
you.
doing that. So awesome, awesome. Okay, so you ready for the last question for the
I'm
wheel?
ready for the wheel. Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Let's see what question comes up that we need to make sure we answer. Oh my gosh, and we keep talking about your childhood.
What came up? I can't see. Oh,
Okay, so
favorite
your
childhood
favorite.
memory.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and that interest, and it's so interesting how spirit works because it always comes up with something that we've talked about in the podcast or what the guest needs to talk
Yeah.
about.
Oh, I have so many favorite childhood memories, but the one that comes up is always with family and with animals. I loved
Oh,
animals when I was little, and I would always, like, anywhere
yeah.
we would go, I would go seek out that first pet I could meet anywhere. And this is something which still happens today. We go to a party somewhere, I end up sitting in the corner with the dogs and the kids. That's
Oh
that's
my
the people
gosh.
I like to connect with. So when I meet people on the street and they greet me real friendly, I'm like, who is that person? And then I see their dog. I'm like, I know them because I know the dog.
Right, right. Oh, and that just means that you've got great energy. If the animals are seeking out you and the same
There's always
thing,
the little
because
kids and the pets all on my lap.
yes.
So my favorite childhood memory was really when we would, I grew up in Berlin. So I was kind of a city child, and we would go out on the countryside, and there was this horse, and I wanted to go to that horse, and everybody was like, do not go to the horse, it's super aggressive, it will bite you, it will bite your hands. And I'm like, it's an animal, I don't think it will be too aggressive. So I started
Yeah,
making
right.
friends with that horse, feeding it a lot of sugar over the next couple of days. And then I think it was 4 or 5 days into it when I was able to climb on this super dangerous horse, which would bite everybody else, and the horse would let me
Oh,
lie on it and nap on his back. So that was probably one of my favorite childhood memories because, like, was such a big animal, and it liked me and it gave me a lot.
oh, absolutely. Oh, and I would be honored for that, but yeah, yeah. That is wonderful because horses are scary for me. so,
Oh yeah.
so I
Well, they
commend you.
can
That's a
mess us up.
wonderful.
They're much bigger.
Yes. So where can people reach you, especially if they want to, take your workshop, and just say, need some type of your coaching
Yeah.
guidance. So where can they reach you?
Well, for the men who qualify, who are in a long-term relationship and say, like, I really want to work on that, my recommendation is go to my landing page for that. It's marriagereconnectionroadmap.com. And I think we can add that as a link on the bottom later, so it's easy
Absolutely.
to find.
Yes.
And for everybody
Okay.
else who says like, okay, I feel it's super interesting, I want to learn more about this guy, but I don't really fit in that group, or maybe I'm not in a relationship right now, I have my regular website, which is coachingnow.info, and you can get in touch with me there. And if you're on TikTok, find me on TikTok. I love posting TikToks. I don't know if you're on TikTok, but it is so much fun to be
I
on
need to
TikTok.
find
I
you.
love it. It's so much fun.
What is your channel name?
It's just my name, Amrit Singh, and then with my
Okay.
last name,
Okay.
Reinsch. So it's
Okay.
ReinSCH. But we can put all the links
Oh,
below. And I would love to, just for people to reach out to me, just send me an email, send me a message. It's 2023, it's so easy to find me on Instagram, find me on Facebook, find me on TikTok, find me on my website. Just send me a
right.
message, because what I love to do is hop on the phone with people and just spend time with them. And
Yeah.
always will do that free of charge. And I often have people who are like, oh my God, this blew my mind. Can I send you some money? And I'm like, no, don't send me money. I love doing this. If you want to work with me, yeah,
Right.
you're going to have to send me money, because that's how it works. But that first
Right.
session, I'm so happy to be of service, and I love it.
All right. So as we go, what's one word that we can send off for? One word that you want to tell anybody?
Expansion. Expand your wings,
Expansion.
really let them be big and go flying. This is so much fun.
All right. You heard it here. I will see you next week for more inspiration. And we'll talk about more about spirituality as well. We'll see you then.